Okay, so I just watched a Charlie Kirk video and boy, I'm telling you, he made some of the weakest arguments against DEI that I have ever heard. And that including Trump's response against DEI, where he pretty much just said, trust me bro, it's a real issue. I just want to note for the record those weren't his exact words, but that is pretty much what he said. But anyways, let's get into the video.
Last year you said something about DEI, unqualified black pilots. You see a pilot on a black pilot. Don't you think it was an irresponsible statement suggesting that maybe these pilots aren't qualified or unqualified?
Damn, I would have asked for some distance from the cult members, wouldn't want that bird brain shit to rub off on me. But we will let him make his stupid points.
No, but I'll tell you exactly what I said and why I said it.
Okay, go ahead.
I said, the pretext, I went through a whole windup. I said United Airlines is saying that they want 40% of all their pilots to be people of color or women.
I want you to remember that, or women, part because you won't hear it again during the entire debate from Charlie Kirk, but it is very important.
We have learned that we have relaxed standards anytime that we try to reach racial quotas. Anytime we reach racial quotas, we relax the standards. Standards for air traffic control, professors, or college admissions.
There is actually no evidence of this, but he thinks he has an argument with black college admissions, that's why he threw it in there, but the other two was just BS. I want you to remember we are talking about DEI, which is about the workplace, not college.
Therefore, when it comes to pilots or surgeons, if I see somebody who is black, as I said on the show, I'm going to hope that that person is qualified. That's what I said, which of course is legitimate.
No, it wouldn't get me to ask that. If you just do a little research, black pilots represent 3% of all pilots, so if I see a black pilot I would know that they are probably overqualified. Also, let's not pretend they said all of that 40% will be all black people. He left the and women off on purpose. Why? Because white women benefits more statistically from DEI than anyone. Kirk is knowingly being dishonest to paint a false picture of the truth.
Because they're begging the question, we're not hiring based on merit anymore. We're hiring based on race.
Now,
So when you see a black pilot, you wonder, boy, is that person there because they earned it or because they were placed there? Of course, United Airlines will not take someone off the side of the street and put them into a pilot. But in order to reach a 40% goal, they might cut corners. They might accelerate the process in order to reach a goal. We know this through all sorts of DEI examinations and projects over the last 10 years.
There actually no evidence of DEI lowering standards, but he thinks his ace card being college admissions proves it, but it doesn't, and I will explain why it doesn't.
You have to choose in life. Either excellence or racial quotas will end up being the most important. And both cannot simultaneously exist. It's never happened before.
Okay, so when we talk about DEI, well, who benefits the most? Because black people really don't. It's only like maybe 3 to 4% of black people actually benefit from those programs. So who benefits the most?
I'm not sure your question. I mean,
did master debater Charlie Kirk get confused by a pretty simple question? No, he is yet again purposely dodging the question because the answer would completely destroy his argument. The answer is white women, like I stated earlier.
Theoretically, if 40% of all pilots end up being black people or people of color.
But that's not. I actually looked it up. It's only like maybe about 6% of pilots
their
are black.
goal is 40%, right? That's the point. It's like that's actually a great point. So they wanted to go from 6% to 40%.
Yet again, this is a lie. Their goal is not 40% of black pilots. He knows this is untrue because he told us the exact quote at the beginning of the video.
Through a whole windup. I said United Airlines is saying that they want 40% of all their pilots to be people of color or women.
The actual number of black pilots is 3%, not 6%. And I also notice Kirk doesn't seem to have a problem with that.
And so you have to wonder, boy, you go from 6% to 40%, there's going to be a relaxing of standards.
Okay, I guess the way let me see if I can rephrase this. So essentially when you talk about DEI, affirmative action, or anything to that effect.
I'm against all of it, yeah.
Okay, yeah, and that would be fine. The thing is that now it's actually, referenced as a slur against, essentially if you see a black person in a position or, minority or whatever, the assumption is that that person is not qualified when literally, and, you have to be qualified in order to even to get in that position.
Well, so let's.
Fuck, I really hate that he didn't re-ask the question of who benefits the most from DEI and correct him that it's not going to be a 6 to 40% increase for black pilots. But this guy most likely doesn't debate often, so he was at a disadvantage. Kirk is just like Trump, rely on misinformation, and his supporters just want to be told they are right.
Let's take college admissions. So this is a great example. At Harvard, We learned because of new revealed documents that black students were having test scores that were 30 to 35% lower than their white counterparts.
Okay.
And so, therefore, if you saw a black kid at Harvard, it's a fact that they were not having the same test standards as their white counterparts.
Now I don't know about black test scores being 30 to 40 points lower, but they do on average they have lower test scores. But this isn't proof that college have lower test standards for black students. College doesn't go off of test scores alone. Yes, they want all of their student to be at a certain range, but after that they move on to other things. This is why most of their students, even the white ones, don't have perfect test scores.
It doesn't matter. The kid has to get through, he's got to get through the classes, do the tests, do all the research.
Well, and they actually drop out at a greater rate too.
He also bring up the black dropout rate. Black students at Harvard graduate 99% of the time, so I'm not exactly sure what he is talking about. Black students also have the highest graduation rate.
But the point being is just the idea that they were there, number one, took a spot from an otherwise qualified individual that might be white. And they were not there on the same merits. So what we want is the same rules for everybody.
You're making the assumption that they're not qualified in order to get in. In order to even get there,
it's not
be
the
considered.
assumption. It's the data. So for example, it's literally at Harvard, you had kids with perfect SAT scores, perfect ACT scores that were white.
So
that is not what the data says, that what he is trying to make the data say. I just showed you that most students in Harvard didn't have perfect test scores. So let's play along and say yes, white students were turned down with perfect scores. Then why are there white people in Harvard that doesn't have perfect scores? If these test scores are the only standards to get in these colleges.
It's a degree from Harvard worthless then.
Well, you're exactly right. Yeah, actually, Harvard's degree is becoming more worthless because it's more race-based than merit-based. You're exactly right.
Okay, now, we talked enough about that. Okay, so in the past, you made statements about black privilege, so can you explain that to me? And what it is? And
yeah, of
how
course.
black
I mean,
people
it's
are getting
easier for a black person to get into college than a white person.
What he is talking about is affirmative action, which was abolished 2 years ago. And even with affirmative action, white people still had greater enrollment rates, so yet again I don't know exactly what he is talking about.
With lower test scores. It's called affirmative action.
Okay, so that's been so college admission has been affirmative action for college admission has been struck down.
Thank you. Yeah.
So
I'll give you another example. What percentage of TV commercials have black people versus white people?
I'm not sure about that, but
about
white 40, people are also in commercials.
About 40. Well, this is important. About 40 to 50% of all network TV commercials have a person of color right now. What percentage of America is a person of color?
At least for black people, I know we're about 13%.
Yeah, it's about so 13% of the population, nearly half of all the TV commercials.
On the surface, this seems like a good argument, but listen to how he framed that.
So I'll give you another example. What percentage of TV commercials have black people versus white people?
I'm not sure about that, but
about
white
40,
people are also in commercials.
About 40. Well, this is important. About 40 to 50% of all network TV commercials have a person of color right now. What percentage of America is a person of color?
Notice how he said 40% to 50, it more 40 than 50%, but anyways 40% of commercials featured a person of color in them. Now if you have ever watched a TV commercial, you know they usually features multiple people. It's like that horror movie with one black person that dies like 2 minutes into the movie. The best way to determine someone representation is the overall amount of people getting paid to do it. For black people that number is 7%, which would mean they are in fact unrepresented.
White people are still in the commercials.
Yes, but underrepresented as proportional though. The point being,
this is what it looks like when someone does research to prove themselves right instead of doing research to find the truth. But if he was doing honest research, he would know that they are not underrepresented. In 2023, white people accounted for 72% of acting jobs in commercials. It's actually hard to determine the exact white population due to the different categories being non-Hispanic white, white alone, and total white population. But under none of these categories would white people be underrepresented. Using the higher category, which is total white population, would have white people perfectly represented at 72%.
I can give you another example. Easier to get corporate jobs. There are entire departments that are dedicated to just try and expand racial quotas.
You know what?
Ha 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 ha.
No? Now what I'm about to tell you is very important, so I want you to really listen. There is no point in America history when it been easier for black people to get better quality jobs than white people. DEI, or not, no point in America history have this been true. Black people actually only accounted for 13 to 14% of corporate jobs, which shows they are actually fairly represented due to the help of DEI. But it's important to note, these are entry-level jobs, and black people struggle to get leadership positions in these same companies. He may be talking about the S&P 100 companies. These companies include industry giants like Apple, Wells Fargo, and Walmart. Now for these companies, black people were slightly overrepresented by 3%, accounting for 17% with a population of 14%. It's important to note they were still underrepresented in leadership roles.
There was also a period where 94% of the company's new hires were people of color. A lot of people mistook this as it meaning 94% of them were black. This is incorrect. 40% of these new hire were Hispanic individuals, followed by black and Asian people with 23% and 22% respectively.
Also, after pushback, many of these companies laid off these DEI hires. In 2023, S&P 100 companies laid off 26% of their black workers despite hiring more Hispanic. Black people received the most layoffs. My final point is there is a lot of talk about black people getting so-called unearned opportunities from these programs. But black people end up not even being the biggest beneficiary of these programs. Now let's get back to black pilots. Charlie Kirk want you to believe that in attempts to improve the number of black pilots who is underrepresented will lead to lower standards because the companies will rush to hire black pilots. We know this is not true because we have proof of it. The Army have had multiple programs in the last 30 years to increase black pilots, but black pilots have been stuck at 2 to 3%. So this video is just to trick white people into hating black people. But I made my peace, so I'm out.